Have you ever watched an experienced leader or person start making strange decisions under pressure? Not because they stopped caring, not because they were lazy, not because they suddenly forgot everything they know, but because the room got loud, the stakes went up, the emotions got hot, the timeline got tight, the phone kept buzzing, the budget got weird, the people got nervous, and suddenly this capable person, this experienced person, this person who normally knows what to do, starts reacting, rushing, snapping, avoiding, over-explaining, over-promising, or just staring into space like their brain opened 17 browser tabs. One of them is playing jazz, and the other one is an email from 2014, and it's marked urgent. Here's what I believe. Most leaders do not break from pressure. They lose clarity inside it. Think about driving in a storm. The engine may be fine, the tires are fine as well, the road may still be there, but the windshield fogs over. You slow down, tense up, and start guessing. The problem is not always the car. Sometimes the problem is visibility. And today I want to talk about what clarity actually is, what it feels like, how we lose it, and how to rebuild it for ourselves and for the people we lead. Welcome to I Am Built for Pressure. This is a place for leaders, teachers, parents, creators, professionals, and high-capacity people who are trying to carry responsibility without losing themselves in the process. In episode 1, we talked about why everything feels heavy. In episode 2, we talked about hidden costs of always being available. Today, we are getting to one of the core ideas of this entire channel. Pressure does not usually destroy leaders first. Pressure clouds them. It clouds their judgment, it clouds their priorities, it clouds their language, it clouds their emotional regulation, it clouds their ability to see what matters most. And when clarity disappears, pressure gets promoted. Pressure stops being something you carry. It becomes the atmosphere you breathe. And that is dangerous, because once pressure becomes the atmosphere, people stop asking, what is wise? They start asking, what will make this stop? And those are two different questions. One builds wisdom, the other builds a group chat with consequences. Let's define clarity, because sometimes people confuse clarity with certainty. Clarity is not certainty. Certainty says, I know exactly how this is going to turn out. Clarity says, I know the next faithful step to take. Those are not the same thing. And some of us are waiting on certainty before we move on. But certainty is often late to the meeting, forgot the agenda, and may not show up at all. And clarity is not control. Control says, I need everything to behave before I can breathe. Clarity says, even if everything is not behaving, I can still choose wisely. Control says, everybody calm down so I can feel good about myself. This is not leadership. This is anxiety with a clipboard. Clarity is not the absence of emotion either. Some people think clear leaders are emotionless. No. That is not clarity. That is a refrigerator with shoes. A clear leader can feel deeply without letting everything feel like it's grabbing a microphone and shouting at you. Clarity is not having all the answers. Clarity is knowing which question deserves your attention right now. And that matters because under pressure, not every question deserves the front row. Some questions need to sit in the balcony and behave themselves until it's their turn. So here's my working definition. Clarity is the ability to see what matters, naming what is happening, choose the next step wisely, and help others move with confidence. Let's say that again. Clarity is the ability to see what matters, naming what is happening, choosing the next step wisely, and help others move with confidence. That is leadership, not noise, not panic, not charisma with a Bluetooth headset. Clarity. Now, what does clarity feel like? Because we need to know the feeling of it. Clarity feels like your shoulders dropping half an inch. The situation may still be hard, but your soul stops sprinting. Clarity feels like the room did not become easy, but the next step became honest. Clarity feels like you're finding your glasses and realizing they were on your face. Humbling, yes. Useful, also yes. Clarity feels like, okay, I know what problem we are actually solving. Not the loudest problem, not the most emotional problem, not the problem with the most dramatic email subject line. The real problem. Clarity feels like being able to say, this is mine. This is not mine. This matters most right now. This can wait. This needs time to flesh its way out. This needs a plan. This needs a conversation. This needs to be left alone before I make it worse. And somebody needed that last one. Trust me. Because some of us do not need to fix the situation right now. We need to stop adding our anxiety to it like hot sauce on a house fire. Clarity does not always feel exciting. Sometimes clarity feels calm. Sometimes clarity feels firm. Sometimes clarity feels like telling the truth without needing to be dramatic about it. And sometimes clarity feels like choosing a smaller next step because the big picture is still covered in fog. Okay, let's go back to the windshield. You're driving in the rain. The road is wet. The sky is dark. The wipers are moving. The inside of your windshield starts fogging up. Now, if you panic, you might do something ridiculous. You might slam on the brakes. You might swerve. You might yell at the weather. You might blame the passenger. You might say, why is the road attacking me? But the first thing you need is not a speech. The first thing you need is defrost. The answer to a fogged windshield is not speed up and quote something inspirational. That is how people end up in a ditch with positive attitude. Clarity defrosts the windshield. It does not remove the storm. It helps you inside it. That is what clarity is so important, because intensity without clarity is just horsepower pointed in the wrong direction. And some leaders are very intense. They can motivate a room. They can work long hours. They can make quick calls. They can carry a lot. But if they cannot see clearly, their capacity can become dangerous. A strong leader without clarity is like a powerful truck in thick fog. Impressive engine, loud horn, unclear relationship with guardrails. Allow me to tell you a story. When I was teaching, one of the things I would sometimes ask students to do was to remember. Not just study, remember. I would say, think about the time when you succeeded. Not necessarily a giant success, not I won a Nobel Prize before lunch, just a real moment. And sometimes we experienced it in time together. Now think about the time you walked into a presentation and you knew, I am ready. Think about the game where the ball seemed slower. Or think about the test where the material finally connected with you and you thought, wait a minute, I actually know this. Think about the song where you were not chasing the notes anymore. You were inside the music. Now, think about a moment in your life, a meeting or a hard conversation where something clicked and you thought, I know what this moment requires. Then I would ask, what did it feel like? Not just what happened. What did it feel like? Were you focused? Were you prepared? Did you know the goal? Did you get feedback along the way? Were you challenged but not buried? Were you nervous but still present? Were you aware of the next step? Then I would ask them to remember a failure. Again, not to shame them. Shame is a terrible teacher, very dramatic, very loud, and terrible curriculum to use. I do not mean the fake kind of failure where people talk about under perfect lighting when they say, I failed forward, while clearly standing on stage being paid to explain how inspirational it was. I mean an actual failure, the kind where your stomach drops, your mouth gets dry, your thoughts scatter, the clock sounds louder than it should, and suddenly your brain is no longer a library. It's a junk drawer in an earthquake. Then I would ask, what did the failure feel like? Did you feel rushed? Did you feel confused? Were the instructions unclear? Were you trying to impress someone instead of solving the problem? Were you overwhelmed by the size of the task? Did you wait too long to ask for help? Did you know what success was supposed to look like? And then we would talk about something important. Success and failure leave clues. The goal is not to worship your success or be haunted by your failure. The goal is to learn the conditions, because often when people succeed, there were conditions that helped them succeed. A clear target, enough preparation, good feedback, focused effort, the right level of challenge, a meaningful reason, a room where they could think. And when people fail, there are often conditions that contribute to that as well. Confusion, distraction, fear, no feedback, too much pressure and too quickly, unclear expectations, trying to perform while mentally scattered. Failure is a professor too, but it grades in red ink and has terrible office hours. That is leadership gold, because if you can help people notice the conditions where they do their best work, you can help them create more of those conditions on purpose. Now, this is where the idea of flow matters. That state where a person becomes deeply absorbed in meaningful activity. Flow is not laziness. Flow is not hype. Flow is not, I bought a new notebook and now my life is fixed. Flow is not when everything is perfect. That is not flow. That is a vacation brochure. Flow usually involves clear goals, immediate feedback, focused attention, and a challenge that stretches your skill without burying you. You have felt this before. An athlete calls it being in the zone. A musician feels it when the song is not just being played, it is moving. A teacher feels it when the class is alive and the room is tracking. A pastor would feel it when the sermon is no longer just notes on a page, but truth landing in real time. A business owner feels it when the problem is difficult but solvable and the team is engaged. A parent feels it when the conversation with the child suddenly opens and wisdom shows up. Flow is what happens when clarity gets traction, and leaders can either create conditions for flow or create conditions for fog. Let me say that again. Leaders can create flow or fog. A fog-making leader gives unclear expectations, constant interruptions, vague goals, no feedback, too much urgency, and wonders why the team is not thriving. A fog-making leader says, just make it excellent. This is not direction. This is a stress hormone with punctuation. A fog-making leader says, you know what I mean. No, we don't know what you mean. We're all standing here with emotional flashlights trying to find the verb. But a clarity-building leader says, here is the goal. Here's why it matters. Here's what success looks like. Here's the next step. Here's how we will know if it is working. Here is what we are not doing right now. That last one's huge, because clarity is not only naming what matters, clarity is also naming what does not get to matter right now. Some things are important, but they are not invited to this meeting. They can wait in the lobby, drink bad coffee, and stop interrupting the mission. Here's where this becomes bigger than personal productivity. Clarity is not just something you get for yourself. Clarity is something you give to others. When a leader is unclear, the whole room starts paying interest on that confusion. People guess. People overfunction. People underfunction. People fill in the blanks with fear. People create side conversations. People start protecting themselves instead of solving the problem. Confusion is expensive, and it accepts payment in moral, trust, time, sleep, and unnecessary meetings. Unnecessary meetings. Especially, yes, those unnecessary meetings. Those little gremlins multiply when clarity leaves the room. But when a leader is clear, people breathe differently. Not because everything is easy, but because somebody has helped the room see. That is service. That is generosity. That is love with structure. As leaders, teachers, parents, business owners, and team leaders, we are not just trying to look composed. We are trying to help people grow. We are trying to help them solve problems. We are trying to help them become stronger, wiser, more responsible, more resilient, and more capable. And that means we do not just ask, how do I get through this pressure? We ask, how do I help the people entrusted in me as a leader think clearer inside this pressure? That is a different level of leadership, because weak leadership uses pressure to control people. Clear leadership uses pressure to develop people. So what do we do? Let me give you 3 practices. Not 43, just 3. Because an episode about clarity should not end up by handing you a spreadsheet with more tabs than the book of Revelation. First, name the pressure. Do not just say, this is stressful. That's too vague. Stressful can mean anything from I need a nap to finance committee has discovered the budget. Ask, what kind of pressure is this? Is this time pressure, financial pressure, relational pressure, spiritual pressure, decision pressure, performance pressure, expectation pressure, fear pressure? Naming the pressure reduces its mystery, and pressure is always more powerful when it stays vague. Vague pressure is like noise in the basement. It gets louder because you refuse to turn on the light. Second, define the real problem. Under pressure, leaders often solve the loudest problem instead of the real one. The loudest problem might be an angry person. The real problem might be an unclear expectation. The loudest problem might be a missed deadline, but the real problem might be a broken system. The loudest problem might be the team tension. The real problem might be a role confusion. The loudest problem is not always the real problem. Sometimes it's found in the microphone first. So ask, what are we actually solving? Not what are we reacting to? What are we solving? Do not let urgency walk into the meeting, grab the whiteboard marker, and start running the organization. Urgency has terrible handwriting and no long-term plan. That question alone can save a meeting, a ministry, a business, a marriage, and possibly Thanksgiving dinner. Third, recreate the conditions of clarity. Ask yourself and your team, when have we done our best work? What was true then? What was clear? What feedback did we have? What distractions were absent? What level of challenge stretched us without crushing us? What made that success possible? Then ask, where have we struggled? What was unclear? What pressure got too heavy? What feedback was missing? What decision was avoided? What conversation came too late? Do not waste failure. Do not waste success either. Both are teachers. One teaches through the pain, the other teaches through pattern. Wise leaders learn from both. And here is the leadership move. Once you know the conditions that help people succeed, build those conditions on purpose. Do not just hope people stumble into clarity like they found a coupon in an old jacket. Design for it. Lead for it. Create the environment where people can actually do their best work. Now, at the beginning, I said most leaders do not break from pressure. They lose clarity inside it. Here is the sentence I want you to carry. The opposite of pressure is not ease. The opposite of pressure is clarity. Because when clarity is present, pressure becomes assignment. When clarity is absent, pressure becomes atmosphere. And once pressure becomes atmosphere, everybody starts breathing panic. Your job is not to remove every storm. You cannot. Your job is to keep the windshield clear enough to drive the next faithful mile. That is leadership. Not pretending the storm is not real, not yelling at the rain, not driving blind because you are too proud to slow down. We are not yelling at the rain. We are clearing the windshield. Leadership is saying we are under pressure, but we are not without clarity. We do not know everything, but we know the next wise step. We will not let urgency steal our judgment. We will not let confusion disciple this room. We will not let pressure define who we become, because you are not built to panic. You are not built to drift. You are not built to be controlled by the loudest emotion in the room. You are built for pressure, but pressure needs clarity, and clarity can be rebuilt. If this has helped you, subscribe and stay with me through this first season. In the next episode, we are going to talk about the illusion of control, because a lot of people are exhausting themselves trying to control things they were only called to steward. This week, ask yourself, where am I under pressure and what clarity is missing? Start there. Name it. Define the real problem. Take the next step. That is how clarity comes back.